This is Laura Vanderkam. I'm a mother of 5, an author, journalist, and speaker.
And this is Sarah Hart-Unger. I'm a mother of 3, a practicing physician, and blogger on the side. We are 2 working parents who love our careers and our families.
Welcome to Best of Both Worlds. Here we talk about how real women manage work, family, and time for fun. From figuring out childcare to mapping out long-term career goals, we want you to get the most out of life. Welcome to Best of Both Worlds. This is Laura. This is episode 280, airing in mid-December of 2022, whatever it is. We're talking about the year in review. So we'll be reviewing all sorts of things that did happen in 2022. And to prepare for this episode, Sarah and I both listened to our goals episode that was looking forward to 2022. And I know that sometimes there might be no relation between the goals you set for a year and what winds up happening in the course of a year. I'm sure we've had some years that have gone a wee bit like that, particularly of late. However, I think that, it's interesting to do a year in the review episode with that in mind. So, Sarah, you listened to the old episode. Is that something you normally do?
No, it is not. I do try to listen to the episodes that you do alone. Like if we have a guest that I didn't get to interview, I love to hear what they have to say. So I listen to those episodes, often fast forwarding through the initial banter with us together. So I don't listen to myself all that often. I recognize I probably should listen to myself a little bit more often since I am a podcaster, I suppose. And so this was an exercise in both wanting to see what my goals are and also just sucking it up and recognizing that it's probably a good idea to do once in a while. And you know what? I liked it. I enjoyed our episode more than I thought I would. And I think many years ago, I didn't love hearing my own voice, but perhaps doing this for long enough, I've just gotten used to what it sounds like. And so it was kind of fun to listen to. I actually listened to it with Genevieve in the car. She was like, "Is that you?"
Yeah. So, there's 2 initial things. One is like the way you hear your voice in your head is different from the way it is heard out in the world just because of the physics of your ears, right? Like you're not hearing everything that is going out into the world. You're hearing your voice in a different way. So many people don't like their voice just because they're not familiar with it because of that. But then we also all have our own verbal tics. I recognize that I say, a lot. I hear that every time I go through the old episodes that are spontaneously discussed. That's less of an issue in Before Breakfast because those are scripted. I do listen to almost all of those, at least to some degree, because when I turn them into my sound editor, I report where there are sound edits that need to be made. And so I need to listen to it to get the timestamp on it exactly when that happens. But there's still, hey, I just did it there.
I don't think I say, I say like sometimes. And the other thing that annoys me about my own delivery is that I did it right now. I'll take these like strategic pauses when I know I'm trying to word something in a more nice way, perhaps trying to sound more politically acceptable. I'm doing it right now. Now I'm super aware. No one pay attention for the rest of the episode. There will be no pauses ever again emitting from my voice.
We're going to go ahead and do it because we do it anyway. It's not the sort of thing that you have any you can work on it, but you don't have a huge amount of control over it. I have noticed that my voice has this little like vocal fry in it almost every time I say, "This is Laura." So I say in the start of Before Breakfast, like, "Good morning, this is Laura." And my voice almost always has this tight little break in Laura. I don't know what it is. No matter when I record, it's just my own name, apparently, is not in a good register for my voice.
I never knew what vocal fry was until I started podcasting. But apparently I don't have a lot of vocal fry, so I'm happy with that.
Yay, yay. So onward, we have reviewed our year, listening to the Year in Review podcast, or the goals episode for last year. But we wanted to talk about how 2022 went. So, Sarah, you wrote your goals, I guess, in Todoist for easy reference. And what happened?
I still looked at it from time to time because I do follow my own system of nested goals where every time I make a quintile goals list, I am going to refer to my annual goals list. So I wouldn't say it went ignored, but I found that I didn't really enjoy using the Todoist platform as much as I thought. There are certain things about it that, for example, by default, it doesn't show you the tasks you have already completed. So I found myself losing track of those. And I really like to see the stuff that I did so I can give myself gold stars or something like that. So I don't think I'll be using Todoist again, but it was useful to have everything in one place that I remembered where it was and have a whole system planned for where I'm going to put my 2023 goals. But obviously, we'll get to that in a future episode. But yeah, the way I attacked this episode is that I just kind of went through, and I don't necessarily think I need to share all of these, but the takeaway was that many of my goals were not completed to a perfectionist degree, such as if I wrote in my list to complete my 5-year journal, I did not complete said journal every single day. I did not have 365 entries. However, I did complete that journal regularly, more days than not. There is something written down. There are a lot of photos pasted in or just random ephemera. I think that's kind of like my theme for 2022 and maybe for life, which is like, it's okay to do something pretty good because it's better to have done it pretty good than, I know that's terrible grammar, to have done it part way, perhaps, than to stress about doing things perfectly and then not do them at all. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty, but I feel like that was the theme of some of my goals in 2022.
Yeah. So how about in the self category? You can talk about things that you were aiming to do and whether you did them or not.
Yes. So I'll try to do the ones that I talked about on the episode. So I am glad that I listened to that. One of the things I mentioned was that I wanted to refresh my wardrobe, in particular to get some more casual outfits that I felt good in and to get some jewelry. I am happy to say, again, do I have a closet full of amazing delights that just make me super excited to get dressed every single day? No. But is it better than it was in 2021? Absolutely. I found jeans that I really like to wear, and I wear them a lot. They're the Madewell perfect vintage jean for anyone curious. And I got some t-shirts that I really like and just kind of found my new casual uniform. I did buy some earrings that don't bother my ears. I think I've spoken about this on a few episodes now, which is kind of embarrassing. But for years, I didn't wear earrings because I reacted terribly. So this was kind of exciting. And I find myself, I don't know, just like putting together full outfits more often than I was previously. I have some more shoes that are comfortable and cute. So I would call this one a win. Check.
Yeah. And another thing I remember you talking about was listening to albums deeply. Did that happen?
It did some months. And the months that I did that, like I listened to the Soccer Mommy album on repeat when it came out. I've definitely listened to Taylor Swift's Midnights very, very deeply. My children know every word, including the curse words. It's such a good album. But I don't feel like I did that on a regular basis. But the times that I did it, I was very satisfied with this practice. So I am going to continue a variation of that goal for next year. And by the way, I am someone that is super unashamed to A, set repetitive goals, or B, repeatedly set a goal I fail at for years. And then maybe one day I don't fail.
Yeah. Because this year you have been pretty much off social media, right?
Yes!
Which was something that you had.
That was, okay, so the goal I set specifically was to try to spend less than 100 minutes per day on my phone. And I did not meet that I definitely didn't meet that because texting and checking the kids' WhatsApp schedules and, using Google Maps, like that's a very hard goal to meet. You can do it if you're like religious about closing your phone every single time you use it. But I know that the core of that goal was to stop mindless scrolling. And the thing that helped me to do that was that in 2016, I quit Facebook. And in 2021, I think it was like November, I quit Instagram. And I've stayed off. Like I do not go to Instagram for entertainment. And I actually think I'm going to do like a more like detailed blog post about this because I did worry that it might hurt some of my engagement with my blog readers or podcast listeners. And it has not hurt at all. I feel like my best engaged year I've ever had in 2022, both from just people reaching out to me and also just from like a financial like earnings perspective. So I'm just super relieved to find that I don't need to be part of any of those platforms to get to share my creative work. And I enjoy my life much more without them. So that's a goal that I set many times, I feel like, before it finally clicked. And flossing, I set for like a decade. And then in like 2018, I started flossing and I floss every
Something
day.
clicked.
So it can happen.
Yay. Yay for flossing. I floss because I feel like I get stuff stuck in my teeth a lot. And then, it annoys me. So it's not so much about being virtuous as just having the
it's
annoyance.
Being not yelled at by my dentist because I apparently have deep grooves and I've had my share of cavities and bad gum stuff. So like I do need to floss and I do. I'm super good about it.
Yay. Yay. Well, so in my self category, my major goal for the year had been these daily rituals that I would be doing. And longtime listeners know that in 2021, I set a goal to read through War and Peace, 1 chapter a day. There are 361 chapters. So indeed, I stuck with it and finished on December 27th. This year, my goal was to read through all the works of Shakespeare. So I have a Shakespeare anthology, his collected works, illustrated. It has 1,024 pages. So you do the math. You need to read about 3 pages a day. And 3 pages is not that much. I mean, it's King James Bible size font, basically, like very, very tiny. So it takes a little bit longer than reading 3 pages in a contemporary novel would take, but it doesn't take that long. I'm definitely doing it in 15 minutes or so most days. And that is not a huge chunk of time. And I stuck with it. And so when this is airing, I will have read just about everything Shakespeare has written. There will be 2 weeks left to go of stuff to read, the final bits there. But it was a good experience. I would say I now know the plots, and maybe I want in the future to read through many of the highlights again, just to make sure I've got all the language and some of the character development, the arcs and the tetralogies. He has a couple of 4-play tetralogies. So, and I don't actually know, I didn't really study Shakespeare per se. I mean, I've just been reading the work, so I don't know when in his career he wrote them or what was going on. So all of that might be slightly more useful to read if I approach this again. And I did wind up reading War and Peace twice, so maybe I will read through Shakespeare twice at some point. So we'll see. But if anyone is looking for a daily reading project to take you through the year, I would totally recommend this as absolutely doable. Like, if you are willing to maybe just read the Wikipedia article on each of Shakespeare's plays before you read it so you know roughly what you're getting into, like who the characters might be, you could do this in 15 minutes a day or so. And then at the end of the year, you've got it. You've done everything he wrote. So yay for that. Good sticking with it there. I didn't love all the plays, by the way.
Really?
Some are good. Some are a little less.
Well, maybe he didn't write those.
Maybe he didn't write this. That's true. That's what the hardcore Shakespeare scholars, the ones who really like Shakespeare, are like, well, he must not have written that. If it's a play that's
probably
not that
a
good,
woman
he must not have written
it. No, okay, well,
yeah, oh well. Well, you don't know, I guess. Another thing I stuck with was writing 100 to 200 words a day in my 365 project. So this was going through a character's day, which was loosely based on my day of December 14, 2021, which curiously was the day that we did the goals setting webinar for Patreon. Okay. And so as I was thinking about what sort of daily writing project I wanted to do through the day, I was like, well, I could just reconstruct today. It had been a very full day with a lot of things going on. So I did it.
I made a crazy face because I'm like, oh my God, I have to be in your writing.
You might have been not really. I mean, it's a lot of it will just like vaguely say what you've done. And then I will go off on a tangent, right? Because I mean, if we're talking 365 entries, it's hard to be like every minute something interesting happens. So it's more mental flashbacks, looking at some plot that happened earlier in life, but is related to something happening that day. I don't know. It's been fine. It's been fun. I just like the ritual of sitting down and writing something. And 100 to 200 words is truly nothing. So if anyone does want to write something that is around 50, 60,000 words, you might try doing this in the course of a year. Just sit down, write 100 to 200 words to yourself. And then, at the end of the year, you will have that much written.
I want to read this. It sounds avant-garde.
I don't know if you do.
It's either
like
really
you,
bad or it's like, it's a work of art.
I know it's probably pretty bad, but nothing has to be good the first time, right? Like you can make it better if I decided to I don't think I will make it better because I'm not sure that it's worth that. There are other things I want to focus on, but it was a good exercise. Also to just have faith that you can sit down and think of something. And I think that's a good skill for any writer. And we sort of have it with blogging, but it's good to keep going with it.
I think that's so cool.
Just one other thing I wanted to mention that I had put also as a goal to have a wardrobe worthy of my new closet. Like I have a fancy schmancy new design closet in my new house, right? And no, I do not have a wardrobe that is worthy of the closet, partly because somehow or another, there were like moths that I don't know if they came over from the old house, they were here or something, but they ate a lot of my nice sweaters, pants. So I had to dump a lot of things in the course of then, putting moth traps and whatever else and to get rid of them. But maybe someday when I trust that the moths won't eat stuff that I buy. But in my goal setting list from the event on December 14, 2021, I had in parentheses, makeup. Like this would be the year that maybe I would learn to do makeup. And as our longtime listeners know, we had a episode in May where we worked with the folks at Style Space that I got some tutorials on doing makeup and I bought a bunch of new products and learned some new techniques. And so I'm pretty happy with how that turned out.
I love it. And actually, maybe I'll try that as well for 2023. I think that's a great goal. And yeah, I love that you did that. It's a peripheral goal. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break and then get back to our next category.
Well, we are back talking our year in review, looking over 2022. Why is that so hard to say? It's a lot of
T's. 2022 in review.
In review, I know. I'm going to trip over it every single time. But we are doing this through the lens of reflecting on the goals we set at the end of 2021 for 2022. And Sarah, you set some goals in the category of blog/pod.
Yes, because I like to divide my work goals up because they just feel like such separate worlds. They don't belong on the same list to me. So I feel like this was a banner year for the blog/pod. And the goals I set were not really part of why. The first one was I wanted to be better at preparing things in advance. I just felt like I didn't have a great system. We were bumping up against deadlines. Like we always had it together. And honestly, compared to many podcasts, I think we had it together above average. But I always felt like I didn't have time blocked off for when I was going to record, et cetera. And I do feel like I got a lot better about that. I got into some rituals about how I record ads and track which ads are due. And Laura and I feel like have been recording a little bit further in advance than we used to. Hopefully that is not ruining the incredibly spontaneous and moment relevant nature of our content. And then my other goal was to publish an ebook, and I had hired a writer to do that. Now, I did not meet that goal, but it was a conscious decision to instead, I did meet it actually. The book is like written, like there are many chapters in chapter form, but halfway through the project, I decided that it would be more fun and more helpful to people to do this as an interactive experience. And that is where BLPA or BLP Academy came from. And so that material has been fleshed out and it's going to be delivered in a much more interactive format. And I'm super, super excited. So I will call that check ? Because it wasn't exactly what I set out to do, but the project was essentially completed and just morphed into something different and I hope better. And I do eventually want to write an ebook. But my thought is that going through several rounds of BLPA, I will learn what really resonates with people. I will have some case studies of what's working for different types of people. And so I think the book will actually be better once I've had that hands-on experience. So super excited about that.
Yay. Well, awesome. That's good. It's good to see things coming to fruition. And as we're talking about this, things can be highlights of the year that weren't exactly what we set out in goals, but they're sort of related. And so, it's a way of approaching the year in review idea. You could just also say, well, what are the highlights? And then not even think about what you set out to do. But I guess we've decided to do it this way. So my work, so your blog pod is sort of my work related. I put them all in one category. I guess you sort of split them out. But, one obvious big goal was to launch Tranquility by Tuesday, which I think was fine. I said I had wanted to be thrilled with the launch. And I think that was not necessarily the emotion I was experiencing with it. I'm thrilled with the book I wrote. I am thrilled with my own audience's purchasing of it. You guys did a great job. You bought it ahead of time as requested. We did more pre-sales this time than any other book. So thank you very much for that. I was thrilled with my network coming through for me, the number of friends of Laura out in the universe who had me on their shows, on their, posted reviews on their blogs, posted public things on social media, all that. Like, it was also just wonderful. And I felt very honored to have that happen as well. I had hoped that maybe some more major media would come through, including many things that I had done in the past. And that didn't necessarily this time around. And so that was a wee bit, a little bit more frustrating that a lot of things did go right, but some of the things that more rely on luck didn't this time around. And that doesn't mean they never will. Like, hopefully they will in the future. But
and they might
so
even they might
listening.
even for TBT. Like, I wouldn't give up on that idea, because every time I hear someone reference it, they're raving about it. So, and people that are not necessarily know that you're reading, like, they might put it in a comment on my blog or something like that. So I know the book has been incredibly well received. So I would not be surprised if the major media stuff pops up later. Maybe it's a slower burn.
Yeah, no, slower burn could be. And so, well, hey, if anyone's a booker who's for these major media places who's listening to this, please, I'd love to come talk about it. I promise I make a great guest. So yeah, that was it. And I enjoyed doing some of the things that I was doing to promote it, like creating the Tranquility by Tuesday in real life videos. This had been a goal I wanted to do for a long time, like creating time makeover videos, but figuring out like, what would it look like? How would I do this? I thought maybe I needed to do it in partnership with somebody. And then I was like, no, actually, I can hire a producer. I can hire a, camera team. And so we did. And so we have these handful of really fun videos. So if you haven't checked those out, please go do them. You can hunt on YouTube, Vandercam, Tranquility by Tuesday. They will come up. So yeah, and it's also going to wind up being my top grossing year ever in terms of income. So that is worth celebrating. I'm sort of having this moment of like whether I want to attempt to earn a tiny extra little bit in terms of like a few $1,000s to hit a rather arbitrary but round number. And so we'll see if I'm like suddenly hustling in December for
this episode is behind a $1,000 paywall. Sorry.
Yes. It's like or it'll be some ridiculous number. It'll be like 995.
Oh my gosh. Well, don't adjust it for inflation, because then you might be sad. But that's awesome. And that's amazing. I mean, especially because the world is, I feel like, still ramping things back up from having been asleep for a couple of years. And like, even in the beginning of 2022, like, your speaking probably wasn't at its full capacity yet. So 2023 is going to be amazing.
Let's hope. How about you, Sarah? Work.
Yeah, so review. Work. I wanted to go to a live conference, although I admitted in the goals episode that I knew that was not under my control. So it was an outcome goal and not a process goal. And we had a whole dive into that, which was kind of cool. I did not get to go to a live conference because the conference that I did end up having a poster accepted at was only held virtually. So it wasn't even, I think I talked about my institution, like not allowing us to travel, but that actually was no longer the issue. The conference itself just did not exist. I did go virtually. It was not very fun. This year, it's going to be live, and I'm definitely going. However, I got an invitation to speak at a conference next week, not on medical-related stuff, on BLP type stuff. So maybe that counts. I'm going to a live conference. I'm going to be there. So check, kind of. Check. My next thing was I wanted to improve my shutdown ritual. And yes, I feel like I have. I think this was like a year that I left with my inbox, my work inbox, the most empty, felt really, really good about it. Like, sometimes there would be something I got really better at is if there was a really long, detailed patient interaction I was going to have after hours, I was like, we are doing that as an appointment. They are coming in, like, which actually helps twofold. Number one, it increases, your engagement with your patients, which they're always looking at those kinds of metrics. And number two, like, the patient feels better taken care of, and I'm not doing it in a rushed way. So I don't know. I feel like I got better about inbox management and feeling like I was totally done by the end of the day. So I'd say yes. And then the third one was I wrote, I want to take notes during meetings so I can stay engaged. But instead, I pivoted to quit every role I had that involved going to meetings where I wasn't a completely active participant. And so I will call that one accomplished as well in a very different manner than I set out to do so.
I love it. I think, well, that's great. Maybe many people should set that as a goal for the upcoming year, to not go to meetings where you are not an active participant. Like, please, if there's a meeting where you are able to multitask through, for instance, like a virtual meeting where you're just checking your email the whole time, that might be a sign that maybe your input wasn't quite so critical, and maybe don't go to that one next time. All right. So, category of home, family, and relationships. What were the things that happened this year based on your set 2022 goals?
I mean, home was enormous because we bought a house and moved, and
you knew you were going to do this,
yes,
right?
That was on my goals list. And we even did the floors, and I didn't even say I said we were going to paint and replace one piece of carpet, but instead we did most of the floors. So that was huge. I did not organize it. I did do some pretty aggressive decluttering before we moved, because you kind of have to do that. But I did not do the detailed Organized 365 journey through our home that I wanted to do. Spoiler.
Which other people should do, by the way.
Spoiler, we love Lisa. I still want to do it, and I'm totally doing it next year. So we'll talk about that in the goals episode.
We should all do it together.
So yes. And then what else? One-on-one dates with the kids. I did some of these. I think I wanted to do one per month with each kid. That was too many, but I did do some dinner dates with the kids one-on-one that were really fun. And Josh and I went out on dates probably on average once per month, which I really enjoyed. I wanted to complete the 2020 photo book, and I did a couple months ago, and I'm hoping to get through 2021 as well by the end of this year. And then finally, I had a savings goal of 20% towards wealth building. And that counted some money being put into the house, because somehow I rationalized that was wealth building. I don't know. I think we're close-ish, maybe. We weren't far, but I don't feel like I kept a handle on tracking that as well throughout the year as I'd like to. So we're definitely going to do a detailed deep dive into our financial situation at the end of 2022.
Sounds good. Yeah. Well, especially as things change, as your income is coming from different places, and part of it's going to be quite a bit more variable than it would have been in the past. That's
yes.
Definitely going to be something worth looking into. Yeah. My major goal for the year was to move, which, as with Sarah, I knew was happening. In my case, it was happening January 4th. So as our goals were being set for 2022, this was shortly coming up, but I wanted to move and make the house feel like home. And I will say, not everything is done. Like my upstairs bathroom, some of them are still in a state of rubble at the moment because they ripped up the floors to solve the leaking issues, and we're still waiting to get tiles put back down. Not everything is done, but a lot of it is, and we're making progress on stuff. And it is a really cool house. I'm really enjoying it. Now, having lived here for a year, I'm aware of how lovely the yard is, for instance, in all the different seasons. Just looking out on this autumnal vista of the trees. I had worried about that because with my old house, we had some really lovely trees in the backyard. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be missing this, beautiful orange Bradford pears and the red maple, that we see them together and it's just this brilliant thing. And now I'm like, well, I've got even more. I've got reds, orange, yellow, wherever. And it's great. So excited about that. So, I said, throw some parties. I had listed this as another small random goal, in parentheses on our goal setting workshop thing we did on December 14th, 2021. We actually did 2 rather sizable parties in our new house. One that was for parents at my youngest kid's preschool, and one that was for some friends and family coming over for Tranquility by Tuesday. We also hosted 2 birthday parties. And now we have the formula down for having an outdoor party. We can put people on this patio where they can see the trees, put our card tables up. We have our nice igloo cooler with the ice for the drinks, and, have even an outdoor trash can that we put out when we have parties. So it's all good. It's great. decorate beautifully for Christmas 2022.
You were planning ahead.
Yeah, because I was in that season. I was like, well, I'm not doing much with my house this year because we're moving, and then maybe it'll be next year I'm going to do it. Well, no. I had on my planner, my calendar for end of October, that I was going to call this company that we had found that does professional outdoor light installations. I was like, that was going to be really cool. We're going to do the full-on thing with the trees and all that. And then I had a moment where I just kind of like cheaped out. And I didn't want to do it. Like, I didn't care enough. Like, I kept putting it off. Like, I didn't call them in October, and then I didn't call them at the beginning of November. And I'm like, well, at this point, I know other people are going to start calling them too. Like, it's going to be harder to get on their schedule. I'm like, why do I keep putting it forward? And it's because I don't really want to.
You didn't want to spend the money.
I didn't want to spend the money on it. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe it's something I'll do in the future, but
Or maybe
I guess I just didn't
a
care
kid
enough.
will do a minimal version of that and make you happy.
Yeah. I also do not have fresh flowers everywhere. It's another one.
Sounds lovely, though.
But we do have a lot in the new yard, and my husband has totally developed a hobby of planting trees and flowers. He's gone like full-on gentleman farmer here, in terms of his botanical knowledge and stuff. So I think we're going to reap the benefits of this over time as all these new shrubs and trees and plants keep growing and flowering and stuff. So that's great. And then I had said start traveling with the big kids. And yeah, we went to Paris over spring break, which was quite a bit of fun. And I had not booked that when we did our thing in December. So that was something that came out of that. And we had a lot of fun. I also did some other things like individually with the big kids, and I continuing to spend time with them is a big goal because I want them to still talk with me, enjoy hanging out with me and all that.
Yes, and we recognize the years where they're actually living at home start to kind of dwindle rapidly all of a sudden.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have just a few other highlights. I'll try not to repeat stuff we did. My kids went to sleepaway camp for the first time. That was exciting. They're not going back. They had a great time. They decided they're ready to move on. I'm cool with it. So that was interesting. I changed my job like crazy. We've already talked about that. The BLPA launch went well. I would say our travel highlight was that we went to Universal Studios along with Amelia Island, and that was just a lovely trip this summer. Although I think I'm hoping our 2022 travel highlight will actually be after this episode airs, which is our ski trip that we're planning during Christmas week. So stay tuned for a report on that because it's going to be quite the adventure. And then I had a lessons learned category, and I will say transitions can take a long time. And if you decide you want to change things in your work life or your home life, just be prepared for a longer road than you might desire. Because once you get excited about the new reality, you want it to happen. But so many parts have to fall into place for these things to happen in a calm and logical manner. So I'm speaking about my residency role. And in retrospect, I'm glad that we took the time to make sure that the program is really, really well taken care of. And they are thriving under the leadership of the new program director. So it ended up working out. And then also just that I always feel like I'm relearning this, but seeking out expert services is almost always worthwhile when you're struggling either for mental health related issues, for actual health related issues, for things like graphic design, or using all the millions of apps that are in the kind of entrepreneurial world these days. Like, I can't do all that myself. I shouldn't because I'm not going to do a good job. So getting experts to help is great. And then it's also a way to support like other small businesses. And I love to look for businesses owned by women or people of color and things like that. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Awesome. Good things to learn as we're reviewing what worked and didn't work in the year. Yeah, I say a couple of travel highlights. Paris was obviously great, but sort of smaller ones. Going to Washington, D.C. to see the cherry blossoms. This is something I just want to do every year now. And we went as a family on a weekend, but it wasn't quite perfect timing because they weren't fully in bloom yet. I kept watching the camera. There's this cherry blossom camera that's on the top of the Mandarin Oriental that looks out at the Jefferson Memorial so you can see if they're blooming. And they were certainly blooming when we went on the weekend, but I knew that we're going to peak on Tuesday. And I'm like, well, I work for myself. I'm going to get on a train on Tuesday, get down to Washington, D.C. And I did. I walked around for like 3 hours and then got on a train and came back. It was pretty straightforward. I think I would have done it for a meeting. Like if I had a meeting in Washington, D.C., I would have taken the train down and come back. So why not do it for this? So, remind myself that I can do stuff like that. We did a wonderful leaf-peeping trip. That was on my review. We do this most years, go see my brother in the fall, and he has some gorgeous upstate New York scenery there. Another surprising highlight for me is that I have now driven in Manhattan. And I lived in Manhattan for 9 years, and yet I never drove because I don't know. The whole thing seemed very terrifying to me. So I always, if I had to leave, I was taking a cab out of the city or something, or we were going with Michael or whatever. But it's now even living out of the city. I've been in, I'm sure dozens of times since we left, and I was always taking the train or taking a car service, or Michael was driving. And then there were a couple things this year that it was better for me to drive. I was doing the videos, and one of them was being filmed in Harlem and at a restaurant there. And so it was going to be hard to get there and then get to the places north of the city that I was needing to film the rest of the day. So I'm like, okay, I will just drive. And I did. And it was fine. I went over the GWB without incident. And so emboldened by that, when Jasper and I went in for his kind of mommy day, went to see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child in August. I drove in, parked for the night. We took subway, cabs and whatever, walked around to see stuff while we were there, but then left with the car again and, drove in and out of the Lincoln Tunnel just fine. It worked. So I feel like I have grown up in a way that as a driver that I had not before. So yay.
I feel like you should get a special badge on your driver's license.
A special badge, a driving badge. Because I got my license when I was 16, but then I didn't really ever drive until we moved to the burbs when I was, I was like 32. Yeah. So it was not something I had really done. So I had to kind of relearn to drive at age 32. And then, I've slowly been building up my confidence. Of course, now I drive all the time with the kids, but still. It's a highlight. Just lots of people know I do these TBT scorecards every week that I say if I've been following the rules in Tranquility by Tuesday. And that's been good. I've been mostly sticking with it, which is a highlight. Lots more walks, more piano playings, more observing of the bedtime. But I also want to give a shout out for all the little adventures that I had in the course of the year. Just like random stuff, like taking my kids to this wolf sanctuary in Pennsylvania or going ice skating. So yay on that. And then, I guess finally, we all just managing 5 kids in 4 schools, surviving the first semester of that.
There should be a badge for that too.
There should be a badge for that too. The sheer logistics of our lives right now it's complex. The 3-ring circus metaphor is apt. And I am trying to think of myself as the ringmaster, right? And I'm directing, like in one ring, people are like driving motorbikes, like 6 motorbikes around a dark sphere all around each other. And in another one, there's like lions leaping through hoops. And then in another one, somebody's like on a tightrope and making sure that they don't fall off. But, it's all mostly working as a good circus should. And so I'm trying to kind of appreciate that, give myself appropriate pats on the back. And shout out to others too, but it's like I would like to make it even more that it can run with a little bit less of my involvement. So that is a goal maybe for the new year, what we can talk about. But it's also been, just a challenging year with still having a toddler. We've had a lot of childcare sort of turmoil, which again is nobody's fault. Longtime blog readers know that our longtime nanny had a very serious injury at the end of October that we've been sort of dealing with the fallout of that and having temporary care and things. So it's been a lot, but we've come through. So yay.
Yay. All right. Well, we can get through our listener question, which is fairly minimal this time. Is there anything you plan on eliminating or saying no to in 2023?
Well, I don't know. I like to think I'm pretty good at saying no. I guess it doesn't bug me as much to say no to things. I know some people really don't like to say no. I don't know. I'm not an obliger. And I don't know. maybe I'm not very nice. I don't know what they think. It just doesn't bug me as much, I think, to say no to things that I don't want to do. And so I would like to continue with that. And sometimes I think there's probably more things I should say yes to, but it's always kind of easier not to. How about you?
Yeah, mostly I just want to make sure, since I am now employed part-time, to make sure that job really doesn't bleed too far around the edges of what it's supposed to be, which can be hard because I don't want to say no to like patient demands, but at the same time, like I can't be adding in extra clinic slots if I'm paid for, X number of sessions per week. So I think that is going to be something that I have to navigate carefully that I didn't used to as much, because even though I was only half clinical, I was fully employed by that company. So the division wasn't so critical. But now I feel like I just do need to be careful in order to be fair to myself, since there are so many other things I want to do with the rest of my time, both in my creative life and then just for me and my time with the kids. And obviously, I took a very significant voluntary pay cut, but that hours cut has to be proportional. So yeah, that's going to be my challenge for next year.
Excellent. Well, real quick, love of the week. I mean, a lot of these things we've been talking about have been love of the weeks. I guess one love of the week I have is having certain episodes that we do every single year. On some level, it makes it sound like it would be easier, like if we have things that we repeat. But I think it also makes us think about it more because we know it's coming up. And so you have a longer lead time to start processing it. I know both of us were doing our year review kind of process over the past few weeks as we knew this episode was coming up, and we've been doing a lot of goal setting as we knew that episode is coming up shortly in the next few weeks. So yeah, it's good to have those because it makes you continually think about it, and hopefully we continue to do them a little bit better.
Yes. Well, I will similarly add my love of the week would be our retreats, because they were such a fun highlight this year, both to have some time for just protected creative work and to hang out with you and just to relax. So hopefully more of those in the year to come, and definitely worth a love of the week.
Absolutely. Those are another love of the week for me too. And a year in the review highlight. I guess neither of us actually really mentioned that in our travel, but because you were local. But for me, I had never been to Key Largo before, so now I have. I was pretty excited.
There's many other keys we could check out.
We could check out all the keys. Exactly. All right. Well, this has been Best of Both Worlds. We've been doing our year in review for 2022. We will be back next week with more on making work and life fit together.
Thanks for listening. You can find me, Sarah, at theshoebox.com or at @the_shoebox on Instagram.
And you can find me, Laura, at lauravanderkam.com. This has been the Best of Both Worlds podcast. Please join us next time for more on making work and life work together.